We're online and so are you. Welcome back. And in this episode, I had a really fun chat with a friend of mine, Sam Webster Harris, who hosts a podcast called How to Change the World. And I thought, why not shed a light and turn the spotlight on AI and see what kind of impacts AI is having on how the world is changing. We're sort of living through a milestone event in our history, and I thought Sam was the perfect person to talk to me about it. Enjoy. So Sam, you host a podcast called How to Change the World, which takes sort of like historical, anthropological, sociological, a little bit of everything, look at these like milestone events in human history and that really shaped humanity. I think the fire episode was super fascinating for me, but you've also done like tools and measurement, but things that really shifted the way we live. And what I find really fascinating in particular is that those topics are something that sit very deep in the past, but I feel like we're living through something that future you, so Sam Harris of like year 2300, would probably have as an episode. And of course, I'm talking about wonderful artificial intelligence. And I was going to ask you, how does AI change the world? Because your podcast is called How to Change the World, but if someone asked me that, I wouldn't know where to start. So I thought we'd take the anti-version of that question and start with, what can't AI touch from your experience? And what impact does that have?
Yes. Well, thanks on not asking me the question of how will AI change the world, because there's plenty of people answering it, and I don't know if anyone's got it right. And I'm happy to also not be one of the people who's wrong. In terms of what it can't change, it's still not the easiest question, but I think one thing I've been thinking about as I've been going through this and just how we became human, and just seeing like the evolution of animals, of just our drive to survive, and just the way all our emotions were built at such a fundamental level of our experience. And then like as we became more intelligent, like the intelligence is a thing on top of our emotions that we created to kind of control, but we still have this weird drive around us. And like a monkey doesn't really know why it's having sex, but it wants to do these things that most animals don't even know why they're hungry. They want these things, they get scared and all this kind of stuff. Whereas AI is just intelligence that doesn't have emotions, and like as it gets intelligent enough, we might start giving it emotions, but it's going to be coming at it from a completely different angle to the way that we've come at intelligence and inventing stuff for ourselves. So that's just been something I've been fundamentally thinking about when I try to imagine what it's doing. But as far as what does that actually have to do with its impact on us and these things, that's actually a different question. So I technically haven't answered your question at all. And I would say, as far as just the human experience is concerned, we just like connecting with other humans, and we're fascinated by art and things that other humans have done. And it's a lot more boring when everything is a completely AI. Like no one's ever watched AI play another AI that much. As in, I think maybe they have run like a million different chess competitions just to see if there's some weird moves, but no one's ever gonna watch just complete AI art really in the same way. So there's just some areas around our own creativity and just what's happened to other people that I think we're always going to be fascinated by. But as far as what is value, like sure, if an AI can run a business and sell you a cheaper TV, like no one cares where the TV came from. So there's just so many things that we normally do where we are creating value that is going to get removed and changed, and what we then do instead will be different. And that is something I can say for you.
I think from what you said, I find that, and I don't think anyone's quite been able to put a finger on it, but I've noticed as well that like with anything that AI produces, it feels quite like emotionless. And I think what I personally as well find really cool about stuff that humans have created is there's almost like an inherent chaos to it, or like something quite unique to what a human generates or puts out, and something quite individual. Whereas whatever an AI has produced feels like it's just from one AI, which I guess makes sense because it's sort of ruled off of patterns and things that exist. And even though humans are doing that subconsciously. Like the art I create is sort of an amalgamation of all the art I've seen on some level. But there's still like an element of human chaos that we haven't quite, or AI hasn't quite been able to touch.
Yeah, not saying that it couldn't get there. Once it gets to the point of feeling like it's sentient or something, then I don't know if it's a completely off topic or off out of its abilities for us to appreciate. And it does feel more like we appreciate the technical ability that it did that, but then we get bored really quickly. Like if you look at anyone's blog that was using AI generated art from like a year ago, it just looks crap now. You're like, no, or like writing and stuff and things. We get bored of AI version of stuff instantly as soon as it stopped being magical that it was able to do it. Whereas humans have a lot longer time before we get bored of them doing the same thing. As far as like an art movement is concerned, we can wait around for a bit before we're like, this is useless, let's do something else.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can segue for a second, because I think what I'm really curious to hear about from your side, because you do a lot of research for, well, in general, but for how to change the world in particular. And the one thing that sort of struck me was like, are there any parallels from like human history to like a new thing appearing when it comes to AI? So like you've done these podcast episodes on, you know, world-changing moments in humanity's history. Have you seen any patterns in how humans or we as people respond to that kind of disruption? And do you see any of those patterns in AI?
There's the general, like, if you just look at, I don't know, when we invented weaving, it was around for like 10,000 years before we actually like adopted it. And it was just the geeky weirdos in a tent that like really got into like the mathematics behind making clothes out of like different bits of string. So yeah, AI has been around for a while, like for ages, just in like geeky departments of people. And then it just slowly became like a bit of a more mass market thing, where there was a need for it, and then suddenly it's become like an actual consumer thing that we're all aware of. So in that sense, it's a pretty standard adoption of technology. I think what's been weird about it is just in general, as with our whole culture, is just everything's moving so much faster. So like even the last 20 years, like the average 6 months of change in culture is about the equivalent to like a whole century of change from 10,000 years ago. And like, it's just such a different human experience to be living through, that AI, because it's, you know, power laws of scaling and things, is just getting better so much faster. It's just, we're constantly reacting to new things. So that's the weirdest thing for us, I think, to experience. But we have so much further to go on AI. It feels like it's only we're just at the start of the adoption curve, as far as, depending on how you want to label AI. Obviously, there's been algorithms around for the past 10 years changing how we see our lives, which has disrupted our politics and lots of things. And there's been AI improving all forms of efficiencies and weather predictions for the last 50 years or whatever. So it's a funky answer exactly, but yeah, I think there's plenty more patterns to play out that we haven't even started, which yeah, we could talk about the different things that I have looked at that could be relevant but might not be, and I guess I could just theoretically talk about them.
Maybe we can dive into one thing, because you mentioned this idea of like we're reacting to new things a lot, and that's a point that's been, for me, quite interesting now, but I'm also really interested to see where it goes, because the one difference with this technological innovation is that it's happening faster than anything we've ever had to keep up with before. So like, you know, a banal example, but with fire, it sort of developed. You know, there was a point where it existed, and then it took a while for us to figure out what it does and how to use it, and that if we touch it, we burn. And well, that was probably quite a quick discovery. But AI, it's sort of like within 2 years, it's developed faster than anything, I think, in our lifetime at least. And I'm always curious, like, what impact does that have on our psyche, or just our ability to keep up with things?
Yeah, well, if you look from just like the adoption of other new technologies in the last 100 years, like the radio or the telephone and these kind of things that created loads of new jobs and disrupted jobs that were before them. The speed of this is at a different level, to the point where like university courses are irrelevant by the time you've even finished the course, kind of thing. And what your parents can teach you of how to make a decision of what to do with your life is just no one knows. And so that part is very scary. And I think our education system, which is from last century or 2 centuries ago, and then it's being taught by people from last century, and it's like kids of today that have no idea what they should really be doing. And we should really be teaching people more about how to learn things as fast as possible and adapt, which isn't at all what we're equipped for in our systems. So yeah, I guess that would be some like lesson from it, but I don't know how to like force that on like university systems as such, and to make a completely new paradigm of what we teach people.
Yeah, and I mean that's like a structural aspect, which I think our general infrastructure and the way our societal systems are built are just not really that well adapted for change happening that fast. I mean, for a course to be written, to be approved, to be delivered, I mean that's like quite a long process. But I don't know from a psychological, because you've also done quite a lot into psyche related stuff on the Growth Mindset podcast, but the thing I keep coming back to is like from a biological level, like the way our brains are programmed to learn new things, I feel like that's also being put under pressure, where if I learn a new AI system now, by next week I have to relearn it, and somehow that's like our biology is just not set up for that.
Culturally, we've always been fighting against new stuff, and like they say, like most inventions in science, you need like the last generation to die before the next one comes along, kind of thing. And it's just a completely different speed to that level of innovation. And before, back in Stone Age, obviously it was way slower. And we kind of inherently just like biases up. We just want to be right about things, and once you've learned something, you don't want to constantly relearn it. And it's just like the sand or whatever, the structure under your feet is just constantly shifting. It's a bit of a worrying one when you can't really be an expert in anything because everything's new. So yeah, psychologically it's a bit disrupting, but it's interesting when you look at like the people who are really successful, they usually are good with that. So I think if you look, like I've just read the biography of Jensen Huang, and he just immigrant, was sent to like a school where people were stabbing each other and things, but always did super well. And like there's some people that thrive on chaos, and whenever there's challenge, always thrown at them. But like most people naturally get traumatized, and like most of humanity isn't designed to be like that. And so it's not really an ideal situation if we want people to kind of just work and be happy. But then if the work they're doing is irrelevant, then I don't know what we should be doing, right? It's like these huge questions, and we just don't have systems to interact with that. And we have these systems that like look after themselves, like our politics systems, our education systems, our health systems, that if it isn't broke, you don't want to fix it, kind of thing. And it's a hard one when there's just so many complications into it that small stuff does make things unravel. And just like how much redundancy is there, or like this capacity for tolerance to have an issue and get stronger in these things, versus do we have to rewrite some stuff from scratch, or is an AI going to just get so much better that rewrites everything for us? Like, who knows? But yeah, we're definitely gonna have some disruption at some point. But yeah, then we get in the whole game of like how long is it going to take and what else is going on. And then if we all just start fighting each other because of algorithms make us annoyed at each other, then that's another problem. And like Elon Musk said, we're going to have a war in 5 years' time, and you're like, yeah, it's possible.
I mean, you've sort of alluded to this a little bit, but I mean, from what you've read and learned, I mean, do you feel like there's a historical analog to AI?
Yeah, there's lots. I have restrained myself in every episode because I probably could just be like, oh, and this is like AI at the end of every single one. But I would say, especially from the Stone Age, where I'm talking about such fundamental ideas to what it is to be a human and just how it changed our species. And I think AI is going to be another one that fundamentally changes our species. Like I did that whole Richter scale thing of like something that's like a 9 or 10 is basically a change to what it means to be a human. And in the long run, this is going to be on that level. But yeah, fire right at the start when we were basically apes with these small brains and big jaws and giant digestive systems. And then once we learned how to use fire, we just externalize this energy source to digest our food for us. So we had like much smaller faces and much smaller guts. So we had just so much less energy needed inside ourselves by using an energy source from outside, that we then had space to build bigger brains, and just completely changed what it meant to be a human by outsourcing a requirement. And then if we're doing that with intelligence, then that's just going to change what it means again in a huge level. So fire is possibly the closest, but then you can do the same if you look at language. It's just like how we stored and shared ideas and all our culture, and this just this like thing beyond human that just started existing with all these like weird ideas that floated around and could fight each other. And you could see AI as being another external force beyond us again. Yeah, and I could go through the other episodes, but I think those two maybe are the biggest.
I mean, this is journalistically probably called a leading question, but do you find those analogies helpful on some level for yourself when you look at like how we are navigating AI? Like, does it give you hope or faith in some sense, or at least some way of understanding it?
Yeah, in some ways they're very hopeful in that we were like a completely different species before them, and we came through them and we had all this new stuff that came out of it, and that was really exciting. And maybe we are at this pivotal moment for our species where we become like a new species, and we've spent the last 300,000 years in one format, and we do become like a slightly digital silicon version of ourselves in another way and reach for the stars, and that would be epic. In other ways, I think these ideas from so much further ago, so much more fundamental, that they were like very evolutionary timescales. So it happens over such a long time period that it's hard to know or see what the effect was on individuals or into tribes. Like they weren't having so much conflict back then because there wasn't so many people. But when we adopted fire, for example, we started completely changing the landscapes and things. We just burned things down and like we wiped out loads of species just because we didn't really know what we were doing, and it was just an easy way to hunt and stuff. And it does give us some lessons of how easily we can wield technology and just destroy stuff without really knowing what we're doing before we've worked out what it is, because no one ever tracked how many species have existed until like the last few thousand years. Like I think Aristotle was the first person to really kind of get into like, I think the species went extinct on this island kind of thing. And we've been ruining things for the world around us for the past 300,000 years, basically. So yes, there's some good analogies, but also the speed of it is just completely different. So again, limitations.
Yeah, right. And I guess also that distribution of information happened a lot slower. So like now, if there's a new thing in America, you hear about it within the hour. So like the spread of, I guess, information and disinformation happens a lot faster, which is, I guess, partly why feels like it's going so fast, or is going so fast.
Yes, that's a big one. Lived in like small tiny tribes that all spoke different languages, so it wasn't very easy to talk to each other or do anything. And mostly you hated each other because everyone was super racist, because there were these weird people who you probably just wanted to kill. So yeah, innovation and transference of knowledge was pretty damn slow. And before fire, we were all stuck in Africa anyway, so it took a while for that to get around the world. So we had to colonize the world first to do that.
To sort of round off the episode, I'm curious if there's if you would place a sort of single warning label, or invitation on this era for future generations when it comes to AI, what would it say?
I think, talking about at the start, I spoke about like our emotions and things. We've always need some forms of religion and a bit of a binary sense of right and wrong as a species, just to decide, okay, I'm doing this, that, so I'm a good person, so I do these things and follow it. And I think going forward, we need some more nuance and ability to have more complex conversations where we look at like the systems behind what makes things happen, like the bigger picture, and have a more fundamental appreciation that it's not us against each other, it's more us against the universe at this point, and it's just this giant infinitely giant complex thing that is very hard to survive on, that is going to kill us, or we can work together, and maybe AI can be helpful with that. And yes, I think the bigger danger is more ourselves than any technology. And yeah, just being curious, embracing things and seeing the best that you can find from it is the only real way, because you can't really, fighting against something unstoppable is a bit of a disaster. So embracing it and not fighting against each other is a much more sensible way to deal with things.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with friends and family that you think might find it interesting too. And if you're feeling super nice, then leave a review. It would be super appreciated. And yeah, I'd smile a lot. But thank you, and hopefully see you on the next episode.